From Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes that make their home in what we affectionately call upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome local filmmaker Jay Marks. Jay is a New York-based animator and filmmaker who collaborates with musicians, comedians, and artists of all kinds. His work includes AMC's Emmy Award-winning Better Call Saul employee training web series, Paul Schaefer and Bill Murray's Happy Street music video, and his most recent short film, A Walk in the Park, which has played at genre festivals worldwide and is about to finish its festival run in his old stomping grounds at the Inwood Film Festival. We're going to talk to him about his work and so much more, but let me first welcome you, Jay, to Inwood Art Works On Air. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Thank you. Like I just said, this is the first time I've ever been in this building that I walked past thousands of times. I lived in several different places in Inwood, two different buildings on Seaman Avenue, and then first one on the other side of Broadway. So I've walked by this building hundreds of times and have never been inside. So This is pretty cool.
What brought you to Inwood?
To me, it was kind of a mystery why everyone didn't live here. I started working in the city in 2008. Okay. I should say my dad grew up in the Dyckman housing projects. I grew up in Westchester, but my family was kind of connected to this area. My grandparents lived in, I guess you would call it Kingsbridge, up by Van Cortlandt Park. So when I started working in the city, I was around 30. Got some job downtown, and, you're just like every young person, you're trying to find someplace you could afford, whatever. And it boggled my mind, the number of these young professional types that were living in apartments that they're like, oh yeah, my table folds out from my ceiling. Oh yeah, sure, we sleep in a drawer, whatever. Just these like horrible conditions just to be like 12 steps closer, stops closer on the subway. Like, I would tell them that I lived up in Inwood. First of all, a lot of people would never have heard of it, frankly. Lifelong New York City natives had never heard of it. And then when they would find out, like, oh, so it's like 212th Street or whatever, like, it would sound like I was describing a fate worse than death, and what it really meant was literally like 16 more minutes on the subway, and just like the neighborhood is just so nice. Like, look, I would never just throw around the word affordable when talking about New York City, but relative to other places and for the quality of living that you could find up here, it is really nice and relatively affordable. And Inwood Hill Park, and just for me personally, again, besides my family's connection to it, the fact that I grew up in Westchester, all my friends were still kind of there, so it was like being up here on this sort of corner of the city versus being out in Brooklyn or something. It was just kind of the best of both worlds. Yeah. So yeah, I moved other places, but I always kept coming back to Inwood.
Were your parents into like the arts at all, or filmmaking, or anything at all?
Filmmaking. My mom was the proprietor of Ferntastic Party Creations, because her name is Fern. She was very crafty and is still to this day. Yeah. She's a clever namer of businesses. And just very, just like putting glitter and stuff on things and just all like bedazzling all kinds of objects. Now she like sells things online and stuff.
Did she enlist you as a young child to work for her and her?
I think maybe a little bit, but not that much. Okay. I remember her, she kind of does what I do now. Like, would just kind of park herself down in front of a television and just kind of work on her stuff. And that's kind of what I do a lot of the time, just sit at the laptop and toil away. And my dad, he doesn't remember this, but he wrote a little novel and a composition book when he was a kid called like Space Wars. It was long before Star Wars. And I found it when I was a little kid. And now when I bring it up, he's like, that doesn't ring a bell.
Really? But I have proof, Dad. I have proof.
Yeah. But not in any like professional sense, but they definitely have like creative stuff going on.
That sounds cool. So you heard some of that then.
Sure.
Nice. That's very cool. So what inspired you to use like digital media to be a storyteller? Because some people do write, some people throw parties and have creative outlets, and I'm just curious,
Yeah.
like, how'd that manifest for you?
Oh gosh, well, I feel like to an extent, it's just kind of the way it worked out. I think I just wanted to be, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I just wanted to kind of like make whatever the stuff was that I was into. So like when I was a kid, I read comics. I wanted to be a comic book artist. I got into movies. I wanted to be a guy that makes movies. I liked reading books, so I wrote novels when I was a kid. And I think as I got older and like, teenager, college kid or whatever, I started focusing more on like, okay, I want to be a filmmaker. That'll be my thing. And that was the digital revolution. Like it had started, but it looked different then. If you recall, like we're talking turn of the century. I graduated college in 2001, okay. And so like I would make movies, quote unquote, but like you didn't really have access to like HD cameras.
Right.
If you remember even like some of the stuff that was coming out in movie theaters that was shot digitally
THX.
At that time. Yeah, well, stuff like the Anniversary Party or, there's a handful example of like indie movies, the movie Bamboozled by Spike Lee that are from, around that time, 99, 2000, that are shot on digital and they look horrible. Like it's just before the red camera and everything, before things really looked good. And I would make films, I tried to make feature films in college, and then I tried to make short films after college, and like they just didn't look good. Like you could tell that they were shot with a camcorder. And when I started experimenting with animation, with 3D animation, After Effects and stuff, I'm not going to say it didn't still look terrible, but it started approaching something that you could maybe call like, oh, this looks like a real thing, And so I feel like for me, trying to make stuff without access to real equipment and resources and stuff, I felt like with animation, you can kind of substitute time for money, and I can just like spend lots and lots of time on something, and that can sort of make up for not having the fancy equipment and things like that.
You have a style of animation, and I've been through your website, and of course, I've seen your films. How do you develop your own style of animation? You said like you spent time on it, so I like the fact. Art is process, and so it develops. And I know people say 1,000 hours or 10,000 hours or what the heck the thing is, and
yeah,
I mean, it's a nice metaphor for just work at it. But so I'm curious, like, how did you arrive to where you feel like you have a distinguished style in your animation? Because I see a distinguished style.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I do and I don't. Like, I definitely at the start of any project, I do a sort of cull of all kinds of artwork, and I think about what the look is going to be for that. And so, for example, if you watched my film, A Walk in the Park, and then you watch like the music videos that I make, they look different, and in some cases they're completely different techniques, like different kinds of animation. But that is what's cool and fun about being a human artist is we do bring something to it no matter what. Yeah. And so I might look at it and go like, well, how can that be a consistent style when that's 3D animation and that's a pencil drawing and stuff? But we do, it does sort of end up having a certain feel to it, yeah. I guess. For me, a lot of it is just kind of like working with your strengths and weaknesses, and kind of like I was never a trained artist in any way. I would always draw as a kid. I made comic books, hundreds of them. And, so I would kind of, there was a Ricky Gervais animation on HBO for a few years. It was the Ricky Gervais show. They would take his old podcast clips and animate them. And that style was kind of basically inspired by the Flintstones, the old Hanna-Barbera style. That was around the time that I was starting to really get more active in character animation. And so, I kind of glommed onto that a little bit of like, okay, like those characters are super simple. That's something like I grew up watching those, and even like DuckTales and stuff, and kind of like, okay, like if I kind of keep it simple and kind of use, whatever skill I have in drawing, and like that's maybe what the characters will look like. And I had, a little bit of familiarity with 3D modeling. So it's like, okay, if I can sort of create these simple 3D environments and maybe, experiment with how to render those in a way that look like different art styles, that's something that I really enjoy, kind of getting into the nerdy stuff of like, oh, these programs have all these different things you can kind of hack into, where you set the luminosity of the surface to be affected by the incidence angle, and then it starts looking like some sort of painting style, or you jiggle the mesh in between the frames and it starts looking like sketch lines and stuff. And so, just kind of experimenting with like, well, I'm kind of good at this thing and that thing, and I know a little bit about that, and kind of figuring out like, okay, maybe I could make something that kind of looks like that. So to me, it's all just sort of like born out of necessity. And then it ends up like, all right, okay, that kind of works. Like you just keep screwing with it until it works.
But then you screw until you arrive at a place that you're satisfied with.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And again, within your budget and then also within your time, it's like the great equation, right? It's like, and you arrive at what you did, and like I said, you mentioned A Walk in the Park is a perfect example of that, and we're very much looking forward to showing it at the Inwood Film Festival.
Oh, it's going to be our
May
last
through June.
screening.
I think it's our Saturday night slot for the In-Hood block for. I just love the fact that we could do that, to have films that are representational of our neighborhood in some way. Not all are just dead on an Inwood story or anything, but they have aspects that make sense enough. I mean, let me tell you, when you're curating 37 short films, you got to find the threads.
Definitely.
You hope, and some are looser than others, and some are tight. But
you need to give a little variety too.
Yes, you do. And so, can you talk about how this neighborhood has inspired you to capture it as a setting for this film? Can you talk about I mean, you don't have to give away anything as far as the plot line goes, but it's like A Walk in the Park. I won't give anything away by saying it's Inwood Hill Park, folks.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's such a choice, and you represent it like so faithfully. I mean, and I know there are some small, we'll call them liberal scene changes at times, but I mean, really faithfully. I mean, it's outstanding. I mean, I want to give you such a high compliment. I will just gush and say I love this film, which I'm happy to tell you that. But I just think it's an incredible job.
I do pride myself on as you're making something like that, and you're like, well, that wouldn't really go there, and then you're like, oh, but who's going to notice that? Who's going to notice it? And so to know that at least some people watch it with an eye for
let me tell you, on that Saturday night, everyone's going to notice it.
That's great. Yeah, well, and it's also funny how, the city changes so much, and that's part of what the movie's about. And so, some of the businesses aren't there anymore.
Sure.
The billboard, the Cars for Kids billboard that I have in there is something different now. But yeah, I guess, part of the idea that predated Inwood was I always had the idea to do just a very simple short film that was sort of exercise in the mechanics of a horror movie, and walking your dog or just walking home from somewhere is the perfect sort of setup for that, because everyone's had that experience of you just need to get from point A to point B, and it's dark and it's creepy. And so I always thought yeah, great. That was always kind of my basic idea. And then just living here, in general, wherever I lived, I would try to incorporate that into my work. For one thing, I feel like that's a way, I like the idea of doing work that's personal but not autobiographical, and so I'm not going to do something that's like, yeah, there was a guy named Ray and he lived, but I want myself to be like reflected in what I do. So just that alone is a reason to kind of involve your setting, but living here so often, going for a run in Inwood Hill Park every day, it's just like, oh, come on, it's perfect. I mean, one of the main inspirations for my film is that old Disney Ichabod Crane thing, where he's just got to get across the bridge, right?
Yeah.
His whole thing is like he'll be safe if he just makes it across the bridge. And so the idea of like, oh yeah, it could start down in the park and you've got the water right there and you can see the train across. Like the ideas would just come to me just like walking around in the park. Like, oh, if you're here, you see the train across the water. That in itself is really cinematic and beautiful. And then maybe something scary can happen with the train. And then, yeah, you make your way out from the park into the streets, and you sort of see that juxtaposition of the nature and the urban stuff. And then it's like, yeah, that very last neighborhood in Manhattan before you get across that bridge to the mainland. It's just sort of the perfect way to like, finally reach safety.
Yeah. Pretty awesome. Well, I love hearing your process, and you've had a great festival run. It seems.
Oh yeah, really fun.
Really, really awesome. And we were talking a little bit off camera about the various styles of festivals. But what is the? Can you give us where has it played, and how has the reception been so far for it?
Oh, the reception has been, I mean, definitely one of the most gratifying things about it.
So great.
One of the first festivals was it was called Forbidden Worlds in Bristol in the UK, and that was an IMAX screen in this old aquarium in Bristol, which is a really cool town. You talk about a lot of the things I like about Inwood, I would say about Bristol. It's got like the sort of youth and energy of like a Williamsburg, Brooklyn, but it didn't seem like hoity-toity or like super expensive or anything, but very kind of young and hip. And they had this, it used to be a movie theater, and then it was like closed down for a long time. And then they brought it back as part of this aquarium, and they had this film festival there that it was very young. It had only been going for a couple years, and the previous years it had been totally like a repertory type festival. It was just like you went there to see like RoboCop and stuff, like old genre movies. And this was the very first year that we were like, oh, we'll open it up. We'll have 2 blocks of like original short films, and we'll open it up. And so because it was brand new, it was like kind of a diamond in the rough. Like they didn't get a ton of submissions. And so, I don't say that in like a self-deprecating way, but I submitted for a full year, we're getting nothing but rejections. And it was just because of my naivete of like, oh, well, okay, maybe it won't play Sundance, but I'll settle for Telluride and Tribeca and stuff. Yeah, no, exactly. And not realizing any festival I'd ever heard of just has thousands and thousands of submissions, and it just like
you become a number, and it is an odds game too.
Yeah,
and the thing is, the bigger the festival, the stranger it is to get in front of the people who actually can make decisions.
Yeah, and especially, my film's 13 minutes, and so it's harder the longer the short film is. And so this Forbidden Worlds thing in Bristol was like our first kind of breakthrough. And so you go from like, it's getting rejected over and over again. So you really feel like maybe it sucks. Like, I think it's good, And so then to see it in a room full of people and just like feel the energy, like feel people just being intrigued, like feeling them just kind of like, oh, like, what is this? Where is this going? And then
like all good horror films should do.
Yeah. And then having people come up afterwards and talk and ask questions and everything. It was just such a perfect sort of balance to realize, it's just like everything else in life. Like, like the rejections are abundant, and yet like you put it in front of people and they really like it. And so I really kind of like shifted my focus at that point where it's like, okay, I need to find the festivals that are legit, that are not some dumb online thing that's going to pat you on the back and send you a certificate and take your money, but that, for whatever reason, don't have, tens of thousands of submissions every year. Maybe they have a few hundred. And so, we went all over. Iceland, I think, was the farthest flung place. It was another young festival. And that was really cool. And not even Reykjavik. It was out in Ísafjordur, Iceland, this little town, in between these gigantic mountains.
But that's like Inwood. It's like these little small communities that value art, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. And they had people from all over. And so that was a really great experience. And Boston, Seattle, Austin, Chicago, Toronto. Just going all over. And again, like none of these are like major industry events, like that was the sort of mindset shift that I had to embrace is like, oh, this is really fun. Like seeing this in a room full of people and meeting other artists and stuff and not thinking of it as like, oh, okay, so this is like step one in the 4-part plan to directing the next Pixar film, you know?
Yeah, and I hate to tell you as a programmer, I hate getting films that say, well, it's really the first episode of a web series. And I'm just like, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's fine if that's what that is. Right. I know some festivals do like sort of specialize.
Well, we do web series, but the thing is that it's like they submit it as a short by itself saying it's a standalone, but it really is not. Yeah. And then you're kind of like, well, you're really just trying to get your...
How can you blame them, though, when that's what feature films are nowadays?
Basically, I know. It's like everything is like... Well, and it's funny, like I was talking to someone earlier, as they're like, well, it's my... it's part of my cycle. And I'm like, really? Can anyone just tell a story at beginning, middle, and end? And then 90 minutes or 9 minutes? I mean,
the term franchise, that's too outplayed now. So cycle is the new...
cycle. Well, it sounds like more like their life's work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a cycle.
It's kind of crazy. Well, do you have... I guess I'll ask. I wasn't planning on it, but saying, do you have any more in your Inwood cycle coming up? Do you have any more inspired stories?
Actually, yes.
Really?
I don't know if it's going to be Inwood necessarily. The next time I do have another short film that I'm working on, and that's one of the most exciting things. I should say this walk in the park thing. I've made a handful of projects I would call short films over the year, but this is really my first experience doing all the stuff we're talking about, going to the festivals and everything. And so, of course, it's been massively educational and, just the process of making that film. And hopefully, I guess what I'm excited about now is having the life cycle of the next project, maybe not take 7 years, maybe not spend a full year, submitting to festivals that won't accept it, etc. And so I really do want to harness that. And so I do have an idea for my next project that I've kind of started on. And it's going to be about the A Train. It's going to be about a little robot cat that takes the A Train downtown and kind of learns a lesson. But I'm kind of thinking it's going to start in Harlem, I think. Similar process that I used with this last one of like combining photography and 3D animation. But I think just for sort of, showcasing a different part of the city, and full confession, I live in Yonkers now for the last couple of years. So, it's not like I need to, like I was saying before, just kind of reflect the different, different stages and stuff. So, maybe not Inwood, but definitely at least an A-Train focused project. Yeah.
Well, maybe you could put in there somehow 207 to Inwood going northbound. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm
well,
kidding.
It can at least
I'm
you'll
kidding.
hear the guy. You'll hear the guy. Do you remember the guy who used to say, "You're taking the downtown A experience"? Do you remember that conductor?
I mean, I do remember that, but I remember so many. I mean, MTA has really sucked the personality out of everything with the automation of their own. Staying clear of the closing doors, please. There's really not so much personality. I remember people would sing. I mean, there was all sort in the mornings mostly, not in the
Yeah,
evenings.
I have to admit, I did not like. There was a guy who would come on and like read from some sort of like religious
Really?
gospel,
I
and
didn't
that
know
was
that.
when I was on my way to work.
I never really had that one.
Yeah, he was loud and persistent. He would just park himself in the door and just read from, I don't know if it was the Bible or some like alternative thing,
Yeah.
but that guy got on my nerves. But for the most part, I like him.
It takes all kinds here in New
Yeah,
York,
yeah,
right?
it
and,
does.
and it helps shape you. Well, that's awesome to hear about your upcoming short.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes a good film festival? You've been to a few now, and the funny thing is, like I love your lessons learned about the majors like Telluride and Sundance and the not so majors. And it sounds like you've had some really fulfilling experiences. Can you any good takeaways you can share with people?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, the simplest thing from my point of view, honestly, is attendance. Like that is really the big thing that makes it
Butts
fun.
and
Like,
seats.
yeah, when nobody's there, it's kind of a bummer. And so, like, the ones that were most frustrating to me would be like. You go to this place, like there was one that the upside was it was in a movie theater that I feel like around this part of the country doesn't exist anymore. Like the kind of movie theater I would go to as a kid that was in a strip mall that didn't have the stadium seating.
Right.
It was like a movie theater from like 1992. It was the, same kind of theater I saw like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey in or something. So I really liked that, but there were very, very few people. And these guys that were running the festival just like came out and addressed these the like five of us there. It was like the emperor's new clothes. It was like this, like they didn't even like make a little joke of like, oh, I guess everyone's coming later. Like there was no acknowledgement that like nobody's here.
A lot of ego there, probably.
Yeah, it just like whatever it was just like this is strange. Like this feels odd to me that like nobody is acknowledging that like this is kind of a poor turnout, and we're all like, so like that, and I totally get like I don't know how I would get people to come to a festival, and they don't have the money for advertising sometimes. So I totally sympathize. But from my point of view as the filmmaker, that is the biggest thing. If I'm there and then there's lots of people watching it, I'm happy. And then sort of along the same lines, just getting the filmmakers to come.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, part of that is on the filmmakers themselves to not apply to 1,000 festivals that they're not planning on going to. But there's, I don't know, there's just, it's also a bummer to see the films and then just kind of realize like, oh, like, that guy, like, that's not a guy that I can talk to afterwards. Like, that's somebody who sent this in from, like, overseas and, like, they just kind of, like, got their hands on it. Mm-hmm. At the awards ceremonies, of course, you're not going to have everybody be there. That's fine. Yeah. But it's become a pet peeve of mine when some of these organizers, they seem to arrange their awards order so that all of the people that are not there get the first ones, and so it's demoralizing for everyone who is there. They're just like hearing all these people. I'm like, I guess we'll mail it to
I
them.
struggle with the awards. I'm just telling you as a personal pet peeve of as someone who organizes is that award ceremonies are just like, I'd rather not have them.
Yeah.
And yet the filmmakers insist on having them, and then they don't show up for them. And so that's what's crazy to me, because like to me, as we're going to have 37 wonderful films in Inwood Film Festival this year, and some are features, some are shorts, some are student films. And I say this, and I believe this, like being the official selection, being chosen, that's the award.
Yeah.
Like, you're in. Like, congratulations. Like, that is awesome. There's your laurels, your stamp of approval, or whatever the industry standard things are. Now they'll star on your forehead, if you will, in school. And then, but it's like insatiable appetite for, well, you have to give an award for the best lead actress in a musical comedy. And I'm like, well, no, I don't.
No, definitely.
And I refuse to. But we did create like a handful of awards just because of like, and I call it for excellence in filmmaking. It's not, I've been very careful over the years. It's never been a best. Yeah. It's never been a best. I've always avoided that word. And I think, because I get it, and it's a fun thing, and it's also and I also, but I see it as a tool as well. So if I can help a filmmaker, like using that to leverage it to get, because to me, it's all about my job as a programmer is to say, I want to extend the life of your film. So maybe
Yeah.
people can see it and enjoy it and talk about it and get done somewhere else. And hopefully, and then you meet someone else who's seen your film and that extends your life as an artist. And then you may work together and create and some fun things can happen. And then, here you are years later with a career. I mean, that is how it happens. I mean, I hate to say it, folks, but that's how it works. And in many ways. And it's getting people interested to attending the awards ceremony, and also the word ceremony I use loosely because there's no like pomp and circumstance. There's no live band with angels trumpeting.
Well, then I'm not going.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like you have. I mean, we actually do Inwood Film Festival. We actually have like cake and we have like the bars open.
It's not like the end of Star Wars where a lady stands at the front of the aisle.
And you know what? I reached out to Carrie Fisher's family to come, and Lucas and all those guys repeatedly do not return my calls. And I said, we're a film festival.
Understandable.
Nothing at all. And Peter Mayhew passed, and it's been challenging. There's only Mark Hamill and really Harrison Ford to do it now. So
maybe that lady from the end of Star Wars that gives them the trophies.
Yeah, that'd be great. So if I give the Star Wars award, they would come. But I think it is challenging to get people to show up, even when you're giving them awards.
I mean, I agree with you. It's definitely not necessary. I have no problem if they don't have them. It can be some of the good ones, like the Chicago Horror Festival. That was really fun because it was like it was just a big festival. They had tons and tons of films. So when they went to do their awards ceremony, it was like chaos. Like it was pandemonium in this lobby of this theater, and they had to start implementing this system and all this. And so, again, talking about having already been to a handful of festivals that struggled to get anyone to show up to anything, it was like, this is cool. All these people.
I think I find horror festivals, you attract a certain clientele. It's like you know what you're getting, and I will say horror festivals are so much fun because I find the horror festivals are the most forgiving audiences.
Oh, definitely. In some ways, like they won't forgive lameness necessarily, but they'll forgive lack of resources.
Correct.
They'll forgive bad acting, even bad writing, bad special effects. Yeah, because it's all about the energy, just the joy of like the whole the whole thing of it.
So note to filmmakers out there: if you're looking for something to do, create a horror short, and you might get some more traction.
Yeah, I mean, you have more competition though. That's sort of the way it always is. But that was great. And just, like the award, they just end up being like an opportunity for, take another picture and just, hang out with people. That's all it really is.
That's the idea. Trying to create a great hangout of it, I think, is the big issue. And well, we're looking forward to hanging with you at the Inwood Film Festival. Sure. And is there anything else you want to mention or anything else going on?
No, not really. I've got a website and a YouTube channel and everything.
Where can people find more of your work?
If you just type in my name, J Marks, and animation into Google or whatever, or YouTube or Instagram or whatever, I'm on all that stuff. I think it's pretty easy. There's a dentist called J Marks out there, but as long as you kind of specify, you'll find me.
Maybe you can create an animated promo for him. No,
maybe. Someone started a Facebook group of all the J Markses. There was like a realtor, a dentist.
No, there's an Aaron Sims. He's a creature creator, actually.
I know. I did a little cyber stalking to just sort of see what your deal was. And
you're like, I'm talking to a horror guy too.
Well, I saw he spelled it differently.
He does.
And I had met you already. I could see he didn't look like you. No. But there's a J Marks who's a fight choreographer on IMDb. Yeah, it's rough out there.
Well, I thought that's who I saw. I thought I was getting the night too, and I totally.
You had prepared your box kick.
Yes, I had. We have a whole ring over here with gloves and all. Well, again, Jay, thank you so much for taking the time
this was really
and being
fun.
here. And folks, go hang out, find Jay's work online, and show him some love there. And I hope you come check out A Walk in the Park at the Inwood Film Festival. So this is Inwood Art Works on Air. It's where we meet the musicians, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes that make their home here in upstate Manhattan. please show us some love right now, if you would, on your social channels, wherever you listen to your podcast. Please rate, review this podcast 5 stars, because we need help getting it out there, folks. It's just a platform. We're just doing this here, and it's like these are the people who lived here when. These are the artists who are making it happen here now. So please show us support and keep it moving there. Thanks to Good Shepherd for hosting us, and to HeightSites.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air and all of our programming, by the way. We're a nonprofit, and you can make a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate. Be sure to follow us on social media at Inwood Artworks to keep up all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Artworks On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, and Inwood Artworks programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.